to mate a monster. Nyra Valebright's wrist burned against the iron manacles as General Thorn's procession wound through the ash-soaked gorge. The chain bit with every jolt of the wagon wheels, and the acrid stench of brimstone thickened the farther they climbed toward the dragon's border. Torchlight flickered over the jagged ridge ahead, revealing the colossal basalt arch rumored to be carved by a single sweep of the scourge's tail. Thorn rode beside her cage in polished black armor, his smile a thin wound in an otherwise impassive face. "Smile, Lady Valebright," he said, voice gliding like oil over steel. "It is a rare honor to be chosen as tribute. You'll be immortalized in story. Briefly." She curled her fingers around the bars. "If the bards remember my name, they'll spit when they sing it." "Bravery is adorable." He leaned closer. "Try screaming when the prince opens you. The echoes carry for miles." Metal rasped as she pushed her face to the grate. "If I still have a tongue, I'll carve your name with it on the inside of his skull." Thorn's chuckle faded as the procession halted beneath the arch. Obsidian pillars flanked a basalt platform where wind howled through rune-etched vents, carrying embers like restless fireflies. Nyra's breath fogged in the sudden chill. Every tribute she'd seen carried to this threshold had vanished beyond it, leaving only rumor and blackened scraps of cloth tossed back down the gorge. Tonight, she was the offering. Thorn dismounted, drawing the ceremonial blade that glowed faintly red. "Protocol, Lady Valebright." He signaled soldiers to open the cage. "Kneel." She stepped onto volcanic gravel, refusing to bend. A soldier shoved her down, the blades flat pressed to her bowed neck, not cutting, just reminding. Torchlight guttered. Silence thickened until even chain links seemed to hold their breath. Then a deep thrumming rolled from the sky, like 1,000 chests drumming in unison. Hot wind slammed across the platform. Soldiers staggered, torches died. Nyra lifted her head. A winged shadow descended, eclipsing moons and stars until both seemed to cower. Obsidian scales glimmered where scattered embers kissed them. Eyes of burning amber locked onto Thorn's troop. The dragon prince landed with an impact that cracked the basalt, folding his great wings with disciplined grace. Heat radiated in punishing waves. Valen Dracor shifted, obsidian melting to onyx-tinted skin and a cloak of scale-flecked armor. Smoke curled from his hair as though it had never cooled since creation. He strode across the stones, every step ringing like a bell of doom. Thorn forced a bow. "High Prince Valen, the tribute from Cindervale as decreed." Valen's gaze swept the soldiers as if tallying kindling. His voice rumbled low. "Unlock her." The general obeyed, though his hand shook. As the manacles fell, Nyra rose, shoulders squared. Valen studied her. No quick appraisal, but a slow, unsettling examination that made her skin prickle. She met his stare with defiance. "Name," he ordered. "Nyra Valebright. Last of my line thanks to cowards like him." She tilted her head toward Thorn. A flicker, amusement or warning, crossed Valen's dark eyes. "You stand on dragon soil. Insults carry consequence." "I know," she said, voice even. "They're meant to." Thorn's color rose. "My prince, she requires discipline." Valen's hand shot out, claws half-formed, clamping on Thorn's throat. The general gasped as smoke wisped around scorching fingers. "Your discipline bred a spine." Valen's voice gathered thunder. "Leave while you remain whole." He released Thorn, who stumbled back, clutching blistered skin. The soldiers dragged their commander toward the arch without protest. Nyra watched the mighty general retreat and tasted a fleeting triumph, until the dragon prince turned back to her, expression unreadable. She swallowed hard. "Now what, flames and fangs?" "No," Valen said, "chains and choices." He touched two claw tips together. Sigils flared beneath her feet, an amber lattice that hummed up her legs, locking them with heatless light. Panic raced her pulse. She lunged, but the spell held. Valen lifted her with effortless strength, cradling her like a troublesome scroll. "You will not be harmed tonight." Funny, monsters rarely keep promises. He leapt, wings beating once. They rose above the platform in a swirl of sparks, the wind tearing Nyra's hair free. The gorge fell away, the world shrinking to jagged ridges and rivers of slow-moving lava, glowing like the veins of an ancient beast. Clouds parted around them. Stars spun. She pressed her face to his iron-hard chest to shield against the gale, hating the involuntary shiver that wasn't entirely fear. His heartbeat thudded steady beneath scaled armor, strangely mortal, achingly alive. After breathless minutes, Valen descended to a terrace carved into a mountainside. Towers of black stone loomed above, windows flickering with a muted, molten glow. Sliding doors parted at his approach, revealing a corridor lined with onyx columns and braziers burning sapphire fire. The spell dropped. Nyra stumbled but remained upright. Valen nodded toward a broad doorway. "You will stay here." The chamber beyond was vast. Pillars of obsidian, silken drapes the color of old blood, and a bed carved from volcanic glass. A single window framed a caldera lake glowing crimson beneath a distant moon. She spun back to him. "A gilded cage is still a cage." "Walls hold nothing you do not surrender," Valen said. "Rest. Answer will come." "Answer? To what? Why I'm not roast meat?" The faintest crease appeared between his brows. "To why the fire listens to you." Without further explanation, he turned, cloak whispering, and the door sealed with a sound like stone weeping. Nyra exhaled a curse and shoved at the door. It did not budge. Hours passed. The braziers never dimmed. She paced, testing boundaries, searching for hidden levers. Nothing. When exhaustion gnawed, she collapsed onto the bed, the glass thankfully warm. Sleep clawed at her, but fear clawed harder, until memories of Thorn's smirk and Valen's eyes tangled into restless dreams. She woke to darkness softened by dawn glow spilling through the window. A silver tray held fruit, warm bread, and a carved crystal decanter of water. Hunger rebelled, but she forced measured bites. Strength would be needed. A small voice carried from beyond the door. "Hello?" Nyra froze. The door cracked open. A child slipped inside. A girl perhaps 8, curls like midnight, dressed in a too-big tunic. She clutched a wooden dragon toy. "Who are you?" Nyra asked softly. "Eris," the child whispered. "They said you might need company." "Who said?" Eris looked back as if fearing eavesdroppers. "The prince. But Valora told me too." "Valora?" Nyra set the bread aside. "Where is she?" "Garden. She brings flowers that don't burn." Eris tiptoed closer. "You smell nice, like rain. Most tributes smell like fear." Nyra's throat tightened. She brushed a curl from Eris's cheek. "Are you a tribute?" "I was, but the prince said I could stay. He's not bad. Just sad." Eris offered the wooden dragon. "Want to play?" Nyra's first impulse was to strategize, but the child's earnest eyes disarmed her. She sat on the polished stone floor, and for a moment, the toy soared between them, weaving laughter through the cold chamber. When the door opened again, Nyra tensed. A tall woman entered, slender, silver-haired, scales tracing her temples. Valora. A faint lavender blaze glowed around her irises. Eris jumped up. "Valora, she likes stories." Valora's gaze swept Nyra, cool appraisal tempered by faint sympathy. "Eris, fetch more water." The child scampered off. Valora approached. "You have courage." Nyra rose. "You warned Eris about me?" "About him." The dragoness clasped gloved hands behind her back. "Valen fights a curse that will devour you both. The bond hungers." Nyra crossed her arms. "He claims I can choose." "He believes it." Valora's voice softened. "But fire burns whether invited or not." "Why help me?" A shadow crossed Valora's face. Because I once believed I could tame him too. She touched the faint scar across her collarbone. Silver scales met damaged flesh. Instead, I was spared only by exile. Flame calls to flame, and sometimes it rends. Nyra's stomach dipped. Is escape possible? The fortress is a maze of living rock. Only wings or the prince's sigils open the gates. Vylora's gaze turned distant. Yet there are cracks in every mountain. Eris returned, sloshing water. Vylora withdrew, whispering over her shoulder. Guard your heart, human. Fire cares little for consent. Left alone, Nyra's resolve steeled. If bonds demanded blood, she would spill it on her own terms. Valen Dracor might have spared her from Thorn's cruelty, but she would not become another ash memory in dragon lore. Evening draped crimson shadows across the chamber when the door opened once more. Valen entered, cloak trailing embers. He glanced at Eris perched on the bed, then back to Nyra. You have met the child. Nyra stood between him and the girl. You keep orphans as trophies? Eris was left at the gate 3 years past. I chose life for her. He looked to the child. Leave us. Eris hesitated, then ducked out. Valen faced Nyra. Walk with me. She followed through arched corridors into a grand hall where molten rivers flowed behind crystal walls. He stopped before a dais ringed by flickering runes. Step inside. Nyra eyed the circle. What trick is this? Truth. His voice gentled, almost pleading. No harm will come. She exhaled, stepped onto the platform. A pulse of warm light surged, encasing her in golden haze. Symbols spiraled around her arms, reading something beneath her skin. Her pulse raced. Valen spoke a guttural word. The runes froze, then blazed scarlet. A low chime resounded. Valen's eyes widened. What? She demanded. He closed the distance, heat rolling off him. You bear the flame bond. The prophecy is fulfilled. Explain, she hissed. It is rarest among mortals. A soul thread that can merge with dragon fire. Bonding grants you a portion of our power, or consumes you. He swallowed. It consumes most. Ice slid through her veins. So Thorn delivered a weapon you can wield. Or a life I refuse to risk, he replied. Valen lifted a hand. The haze vanished. She staggered out, anger blazing. You think locking me in silk makes it mercy? He flinched. Choice is mercy. I choose freedom. Then take it, he whispered, voice cracking. If you find a way. She stared, shocked at the sorrow in him. Before she could speak, thunder rolled overhead. An alarm bell rang, a deep gong straining metal. Valen's head snapped toward the high windows. An intruder. Stay here. He sprinted away, cloak igniting as wings burst forth. Alone, Nyra's heart pounded with confusion. Why did his pain feel like sparks on her own skin? Yet Valora's warning rang louder. Flame rends. Determination forged anew. She bolted down the corridor opposite Valen's path. If chaos had come, perhaps it carried escape. She rounded a bend into a balcony overlooking a courtyard where lesser dragons circled in agitation. Lightning flashed. On the far wall, she glimpsed familiar armor. General Thorn, somehow inside the fortress, leading armored men who lobbed grappling harpoons tipped with shimmering chains. Fireballs roared from defending dragons, but one chain caught a drake's throat, yanking it to stone with brutal finality. Nyra's stomach twisted. Thorn glanced upward, meeting her gaze across the distance. He grinned, lifting a crossbow. A bolt whistled. She ducked. Stone exploded near her head. Soldiers cheered. Rage boiled. Without thinking, she snatched a fallen spear from a decorative rack and hurled it. The weapon sailed truer than any throw in her life, piercing the pulley mechanism of the harpoon. Sparks flew, chain snapping back, dragging 2 soldiers into the moat of magma below. Screams cut short. Thorn's grin faltered into fury. Nyra spun, sprinting for shelter as more bolts struck pillars around her. She barreled through winding halls lit by emergency braziers, stumbling into a dark antechamber where a circular window peeled open to raw night air. Wind howled through the gap. Beyond lay a narrow ledge and a sheer drop into swirling mist. Freedom or death. Her heart hammered. Behind her, boots pounded. Thorn's voice snarled, "Tribute." Nyra swung onto the ledge, clutching the window frame. Lightning illuminated the abyss. Below, wings beat. Valen returned, colliding midair with Thorn's wyvern mount. Scales and steel clashed in a deafening crack. The wyvern shrieked. Valen's dragon form slammed it into the cliff. A violent updraft rocked the ledge. Nyra's grip slipped. She felt herself fall, air sucking the scream from her lungs. Stone flashed past. Then heat, searing, fierce, closed around her as talons caught her waist. The world spun. She found herself pressed against Valen's chest in human form, his wings flaring mere breaths from the cliff face. He landed on a terrace above the battle, placing her gently down before whirling to leap back toward Thorn. Nyra seized his arm. "I can fight," she rasped. His gaze flickered gold. "I will not risk your flame. Then don't make me watch you bleed." She grabbed a fallen soldier's discarded sword. "We end this together." Conflict warred in his eyes, fear for her, hunger for battle, then resolved into hard acceptance. He nodded once. They surged back into the fray, dragon prince and flame-bonded lady side by side as the fortress roared with fire and steel, and the night trembled under the first sparks of something more dangerous than war, the promise of their union yet to ignite. Smoke thickened into rolling curtains across the courtyard, carrying the tang of scorched steel and blistered flesh. Nyra's borrowed sword shook in her grip, bruises blooming beneath her ceremonial silk. Yet a strange vitality sparked in her veins, heat that pulsed hotter each time Valen's roaring flame met enemy steel. On the parapet above, Thorn bellowed orders, his chain harpoons lashing for dragons wheeling through turbulent night. Valen swept before her, wings half unfurled, jet scales cycling between flesh and armor with each lethal strike. A soldier lunged at Nyra. She parried, surprised at her own speed. Fiery warmth licked up her arm from the hilt, guiding the arc of her blade. The man dropped, armor melting where her sword kissed it. She stared at the glowing metal, heart pounding. Valen's voice thundered, "Get back." She spun, a lance of witchfire streaked toward her from a catapult rigged on the opposite wall. Instinct screamed. She thrust a hand up. Flame met limb, yet instead of scalding pain, she felt a tug, like silk yanked through a ring. A vortex of orange and gold coiled around her fingers, the projectile's energy sucking inward until only sparks drifted away. Silence spread, shocked and absolute. Valen's eyes widened, molten gold. "You drew it into yourself." She lowered her hand, palm glowing faintly. "I didn't mean... later." He caught her elbow. "We finish this." Thorn's horn sounded retreat as the wyvern core buckled. Chains snapped under dragon claws. Soldiers fled along the siege bridges toward the lower pass. Valen vaulted skyward, intercepting Thorn midair. Nyra watched breathless as dragon prince and human general locked in a violent ballet, Thorn's harpoon chain wrapping Valen's wing. Valen twisted, but the enchanted links burned runes into his scales. He faltered, plummeted. Nyra's heart seized. Without thinking, she sprinted toward the edge of the battlement, every step burning brighter. She leapt, landing atop the chain still tethered to Thorn's launcher. Heat welled through her bones. Unstoppable. Euphoric. She gripped the iron links. White flare erupted from her skin, spreading along the chain in a flash of screaming metal. Runes burst, molten droplets raining down. The chain dissolved. Valen's wings snapped wide, catching air again. Wind roared as he swooped beneath her precarious perch. "Jump, Nyra." She released the smoking stub of chain, trusting the impossible. He caught her against his chest, scorching talons careful of her skin. They banked, soaring low over stampeding soldiers. Valen unleashed a corridor of flame that herded them toward the outer gate but spared their lives. Thorn scrambled onto a battered wyvern, hatred carved into his face as he fled. The fortress calmed, only the crackle of scattered fires breaking the night hush. Valen landed in a secluded atrium of obsidian pillars. As his feet touched ground, his form trembled. Scales flickered out and back in, uncontrolled. Nyra slid free, sword clanging away. He braced against a column, jaw clenched. She saw smoke seeping from thin wounds along his wing joints, brand marks from the cursed chain. Every instinct begged her to touch him, but Vylora's warning echoed. Still she stepped close. "You saved me," he rasped. "You saved me first." He managed to laugh. Frayed, astonished. "You wielded witchfire as if it were yours." It listened. She flexed her still glowing fingers. "What does that mean?" "The bond awakens." He hissed as scales peeled back to flesh, raw around burned sigils. "Close contact accelerates it. If we do not finish the rite soon, it will consume us both." She swallowed. "Tell me about this rite." His gaze lowered to her mouth as though confession itself scalded him. "I would join my flame to yours. Bodies and souls entwined. If your heart accepts, you will rise with power. If it rejects, fire turns inward." He looked away. "I will not gamble your life." Heat thrummed inside her, half terror, half desire. Before she could speak, light footsteps echoed. Vylora entered, silver hair street-lit by dying fires. "He will if prophecy's lash tightens," she said coolly. "Nyra, your skin already bears ember veins. If dawn finds you unjoined, they may burn straight through." Valen's head lifted. "Enough. Nyra chooses, no one else." Vylora's eyes softened with grudging respect. "I speak as witness. The choice is yours, human." The dragoness left as quietly as she'd come. Valen turned back to Nyra, vulnerability flickering beneath stoic lines. "You look at me as if I'm still human," she breathed. "Because you are more than that." He traced a singed lock of her hair. "And yet, my equal in fire." She stepped away, pulse racing. "I need a moment to think. Not in this ruin of ash." "Come." He led her through hidden doors into a spiral hallway carved in glowing obsidian. They emerged on a balcony overlooking an inner garden surprisingly alive, crimson lilies trembling beside pools that shimmered with starlight. Eris sat by a fountain hugging her wooden dragon. When she saw Nyra, she ran forward. "You came back," she cried. "They said soldiers were here. I was scared." Nyra dropped to her knees, fierce tenderness swallowing turmoil. "It's over for now, little flame." Valen watched, chest easing as Nyra soothed the child. Something inside Nyra shifted, seeing that softness in his eyes, proof that this monster could care. She rose as Valen dismissed Eris to attendants. Copper petals drifted over black water around them. "Thank you for protecting her," Nyra said. "I failed to shield anyone," he murmured. "You fought your own kind to spare human lives." He paced along the pool's edge, tension coiled. "I wrought worse carnage centuries ago. Tonight changes nothing. Never nothing." She touched the water, heat sparking beneath her fingertips until lotus-like flames blossomed across the surface. Valen's eyes widened. She gasped, withdrawing. "Your fire answers mine already," he whispered. "It thrills and terrifies me." Her voice shook. "But I won't be a consequence of your curse. I need to choose you for me." His expression crumbled with relief and dread entwined. "Then come with me to the sanctum. At dawn my dragon soul will turn to stone if unbound, but I will not force your hand." "Lead me," she said. They walked through yawning halls where molten glass petrified mid-drip along ceilings. Power pulsed between them, each breath fanning sparks under Nyra's skin. Valen's breaths grew ragged, as if holding flame at bay. They reached a cavernous chamber beneath the peak, a cathedral of fire. At its heart, a lake of living magma roiled beneath a dais. Crystal veins crisscrossed the floor, carrying rivers of light. Valen stepped onto the dais. Scales rippled over his arms, eyes igniting. "This is the Hearthstone," he said softly. "Here our kind forge mate bonds. I swore never to set foot here again after Valora, yet destiny drags me back." She recalled Valora's scar. "You loved her, once. The bond never fully took. She was strong, but not flameborn. Our attempt scarred her and shattered me." He met Nyra's eyes, voice breaking. "I will not watch you burn." Nyra approached until heat from the magma licked her calves. She trembled, not with fear, but intense awareness. "I am not Valora. The fire inside me grows fiercer every hour. Perhaps it was always waiting for yours." He reached out, hesitant. She placed her palm against his chest. Flame surged, amber lines unfurling across both their skins in mirrored patterns. The air thrummed like a drum stretched too tight. Behind them, a roar echoed down the corridor. Thorn returned with a final, desperate assault. Valen whipped around, but Nyra's new instinct flared. She raised a hand. Walls of liquid fire erupted from the magma, sealing the entryway with a hiss. Distant shouts muffled, then fell silent. Nyra blinked at her glowing limbs. "The magma listened to me." Valen's pupils slit. "The bond accelerates. If we wait longer, you may crack from power. Then don't wait." She lifted his hand, pressed it over her racing heart. His palm was blistering hot, yet her skin thrilled instead of singed. His breath stuttered. "If I let desire rule me, it could still kill you. Desire is not the enemy, fear is." Her voice softened. "Valen, let me burn with you, not against you." Torchlight and magma cast gold shadows across his face, vulnerable and fierce. Slowly, he drew her into his arms, wings curving like shield walls. Their foreheads touched. Breath mingled. Two storms meeting. "Promise me choice," he murmured against her lips, "and always." She brushed her mouth to his, testing. Fire flared where they kissed, yet pleasure, not pain, flooded her. She smiled into it. He groaned, surrendering restraint. Their lips met again, deeper, desperate, claiming. Energy surged, lines of molten script racing over their skins, converging where bodies pressed. Nyra gasped as warmth pooled deep and low, simultaneously comforting and electrifying. Valen cradled her thigh, drawing her closer until no air remained. Flame veins brightened, magma responding with rising waves. Sweat beaded on their temples, evaporated in the blaze of their connection. Nyra's gown smoked and vanished like mist, leaving glowing embers across her bare skin. Valen shuddered, armor liquefying, reforming in partial plates that slid away under her exploring hands. He lifted her effortlessly. She wrapped around him, heartbeat sinking to a thunderous rhythm older than kingdoms. Between frenzied kisses, he rasped, "Still time to stop." "Never stop." Her answer came from instinct deeper than thought. "Claim me." The last shards of his restraint shattered. He laid her on black crystal steps, wings arching overhead in a shelter of living night. As he moved above her, their merged heat stoked the magma into a roaring chorus. Nyra felt her body yield and ignite, the frightful brink of burning giving way to exquisite release, as bonfire spread through marrow and memory in a single, unstoppable rush. Colors she'd never seen flared behind her eyes, scarlet threaded with opal, gold edged in silver, and in the center, Valen's soul blaze, vast and venerable, embracing hers. She cried out. He answered with a roar that trembled the chamber walls. When the final tremor eased, they lay tangled on cooling crystal, embers drifting like lazy snow. Valen kissed her forehead, a reverent touch. The scales on his arms shimmered brighter, unscarred. Nyra traced them, awed to find her own skin bearing faint honeycomb lattice where flame veins had cooled into patterns like delicate scales. He brushed a tear from her cheek. Did it hurt? Only that it had to end. It never ends. He pressed her palm to his chest. Our fire is one now. Distant stone cracked as Thorn's barrier finally slid aside, but the intruder's footsteps faltered. Thorn stepped into the chamber, crossbow raised, only to freeze as molten rivers twisted up like serpents at Nyra's silent command. She stood naked yet unashamed, power whispering against her skin. "Leave and live, General." Thorn backed away, horror widening his bloodshot eyes. He fled down the corridor, boots clattering. Nyra exhaled, feeling her heartbeat echo in every ripple of lava. Valen rose behind her, wrapping a wing around her shoulders. She leaned into him, lips curling. "Monster HM," she teased. He kissed the curve of her neck. "Mate," he corrected. The magma calmed, shifting into a mirror-bright lake reflecting two silhouettes, one crowned by wings, the other haloed by dancing flame. As dawn crept over volcano peaks, Nyra and Valen watched their reflections and saw no fear, only the beginning of a love forged hotter than prophecy and tempered by choice. "Let's face the sky together," she whispered. "Always." His answer rumbled like distant thunder as wings unfurled and flame greeted the rising sun. The new sun gilded the caldera lake below the balcony, each ripple catching a shard of light that danced across Nyra's bare shoulders. She leaned on the railing in one of Valen's immense robes, the fabric smelling of smoke and storm. Inside her chest, rhythmic warmth pulsed, rising and falling with his distant heartbeat. When she flexed her fingers, fire answered, a gentle flare that flitted across her skin in harmless sparks before dissipating into dawn air. Power felt neither alien nor overwhelming now. It breathed with her, patient as a still sleeping dragon. Bootsteps approached. Valen emerged from the corridor, dressed in dark leathers trimmed with fresh molten gold seams. The raw burns at his wing joints had healed overnight, scales restored to onyx sheen. His smile was quiet, reverent, still surprised that she remained at his side. "I thought you would be gone to inspect the damage by now," she said, offering him a slice of dawn-colored fruit from a tray Eris had left. "I needed to be sure Dawn did not steal you," he murmured, taking both the fruit and her offered hand. "When it did not, I decided the fortress could wait." Heat bloomed in her cheeks. "I doubt your generals will agree." "Generals bend, or burn." His tone held matter-of-fact darkness, then softened. "Besides, Valora has the command post for inspection." She insisted. Nyra's pulse quickened. She was here? She saw the bond? "Yes." "She asked first whether you survived, then whether I deserved it." He brushed his thumb over her newly etched flame patterns. "I told her time will decide." Nyra pressed closer, inhaling the metallic forest scent of him. The magma lake churned lazily below, reflecting their silhouettes. When she spoke, her voice was small. "I want to see Eris and Valora. I want to know the people who will judge me, if only in whispers." He tucked an errant lock of hair behind her ear. "Then meet them as you choose, as the mate of a dragon prince, or as Nyra Valebright who faced fear and seized fire." She nudged his shoulder playfully. "Arrogant monster. You make them sound like titles." He turned her palm up, kissed the pulse there. "And you make them yours." They found Eris in the moon garden where last night's clash had scattered petals of molten glass across charcoal soil. The child sat cross-legged beside Valora, replacing shattered lily stems with small flames coaxed from her cupped palms. When released, each tiny fire settled in the earth and sprouted into a glowing blossom. Valora guided her hands, eyes gentle beneath silver lashes. Eris looked up first, squealing when she saw Nyra. "Your arms are glowing again." Nyra knelt and let Eris inspect the faint scale lattice at her wrists. Not as bright as last night, little flame, but still beautiful. Valora rose smoothly. "Dawn serves you both." She studied Valen, then Nyra. "And you live." "Thank you for warning me," Nyra said, meaning it. "But some fires are worth the risk." Valora's expression flickered, torn between envy and respect. "I will remember." She offered Nyra a small obsidian pendant, etched with swirling runes. This will temper surges of power, until control is second nature. Nyra accepted. I will cherish it. And you? Valora inclined her head, stepped aside as courtiers approached. Dragons in human guise, some with scaled cheeks, others with slit pupils briefly revealed before polite lids hid them away. Whispers rose, curiosity and caution twining. Valen's wings tightened invisibly. Nyra squeezed his hand. Let them look, she whispered. I will not hide from judgment. The crowd parted unexpectedly as General Thorn stumbled into the garden, flanked by 2 dragon guards who must have dragged him up from the dungeons. Shackled and sullen, he still carried the swagger of a man used to bending knees. His gaze leapt to Nyra and hatred flared anew. Traitor, he spat, witch. Your flame will scorch your own people first, you'll see. Nyra felt heat ripple, but Valen raised a hand. Silence settled. You invaded my realm, slaughtered my kin, attempted to steal my mate, Valen said. Yet your life remains. Do you wonder why? Thorn's lip twisted. Mercy from a beast. Spare me. Not mercy. Witness, Valen replied. Humans will know Bonfire chose unity over conquest today. Deliver the message. If any kingdom sends chains again, they'll return as ash. He gestured. Guards unshackled Thorn and marched him to the arching skybridge. Thorn looked back once, eyes like coals, then vanished between pillars. Nyra exhaled tension. You surprised me, she said quietly. Spared blood now to avoid rivers later. Valen's fingers threaded hers. Besides, your story deserves its own stage, not stained by his execution. Soft murmurs turned approving when Nyra stepped forward to address the court. Her voice carried without force, amplified by the chamber's natural acoustics. I stand not as tribute but as flame bond to Prince Valen. The fire we share belongs to none but us, yet we will wield it for peace where peace is possible. A low sweeping bow came from the oldest dragon present, a horned matriarch whose scales shimmered opal behind human guise. Others followed in measured respect. Nyra's lungs loosened. Around her, petals of living flame bloomed, echoing Eris's earlier creations. When the assembly dispersed, Nyra and Valen returned to the private sanctum beneath the peak. There, crystal conduits glowed softly, soothing rather than blazing. Valen poured amber liquid into 2 chalices. Blood wine distilled from storm clouds, he said, handing her one. Tradition bids new mates drink together. She sipped, warmth spread like velvet inferno. He watched the line of her throat, eyes kindling. Her pulse quickened in thrilling echo inside his chest. A tap sounded at the door. Valora entered carrying a folded charcoal cloak. She held it toward Nyra. Your first sky mantle. Until wings come, this will keep the wind from stealing your heat. Nyra accepted. Thank you, Sister of Flame. Valora's smile was fragile but real. Take care of him. He forgets to breathe sometimes. When Valora left, Valen drew Nyra against him, cloak falling around her shoulders. Do you dare the clouds? He murmured. With you always. They climbed a narrow stair that corkscrewed through diamond-veined basalt until they reached a pinnacle terrace. The world stretched in staggering sweep below, valleys smoking after last night's battle, distant human villages tiny and still, morning mists peeled away by rising light. Valen stepped to the edge, wings unfurling. My bond, he said, voice husky with awe and devotion, will you fly with me? She laughed, exhilarated. And miss our first hunt together? Never. He gathered her into his arms. Flame flickered where his palms met her thighs, yet it caressed instead of searing. She threaded fingers through his hair. Kiss me first, she whispered, because I want every soaring moment to taste like this. He sealed his mouth to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, slow exploration of new belonging, then deepened into a promise of shared storms and hearths alike. Fire swirled about their joined lips, casting a halo that lit the sky brighter than dawn. When they finally parted, breathless and grinning, Valen leapt. Wind thundered. Nyra clenched his shoulders, laughter torn away by speed. Cold air should have bitten, yet the cloak warmed with inner embers carrying his fire. Valen angled upward through scattered clouds. Each vapor burst, exploding in prisms around their blazing aura. Mountains dropped beneath like old memories. Below, Eris stood on a balcony, tiny arms flailing in excited waves. Dragons rose from parapets, shining into daylight, their roars a chorus of acceptance. Nyra felt it, the realm opening to her flame, recognizing not a victim but a queen of their sky. Higher still they soared until the horizon curved, a silver line between worlds. Valen eased into a glide, wings spanning eternity, and placed Nyra astride his back. She stretched her arms wide, fingertips trailing glittering currents. Tears of fierce joy burned cold on her cheeks before flames dried them away. "Can you hear my heart, Nyra Valebright Dracor?" His voice echoed through the bond. "Clear as my own." She pressed a hand over his beating scales. "It says we have only just begun." His chuckle rolled beneath her legs. "Then let beginning be our eternity." They tilted wings and dove together, dragon and dragonborn, into a future of unknown fires, ready to write new myths in molten script across the sky. One impossible heartbeat, one daring kiss at a time.